Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Today, the San Diego County Board of Supervisors declared a humanitarian crisis over the surge in people seeking asylum at our border. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Supervisors are asking the federal government for resources. But in the meantime, organizations helping the arriving migrants say the county needs to step up. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne has the update.
The request to the federal government is this: either limit the number of asylum seekers released into the region, or provide the resources for non-government partners to help the migrants reach their destinations. While most speakers at today's meeting agreed that the federal government needs to provide support, that is going to take time. And the organizations who've been providing the support for the last 2 weeks are looking to the county to fill that gap.
This is something that requires a community response, and we fully expect the county to do their part alongside us now. We can't afford to wait when people are at risk of being trafficked, when people are at risk of illness.
Dig deep when there is an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. Congregations, community volunteers, the city of Oceanside stepping up. We need help. The county is uniquely positioned to provide additional resources.
We are providing our own emergency funds to address significant needs. Many others are doing the same and more. Is it not the local county who is even more appropriately positioned with way more resources and a dedicated Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs that should be leading this effort?
The county didn't deploy any immediate support to the organizations on the ground, but recommendations do include continued support from the Office of Immigrants and Refugee Affairs. A representative for that office said they are one of the smallest offices within the Department of Homeless Solutions and Equitable Communities. They only have 5 permanent staff members and don't provide direct services to people needing help. Next month, the office will be presenting staff a report of the work they have been doing, as well as accepting a grant for a North County Welcome Center to assist immigrants and refugees. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
The rights of LGBTQ students are on the agenda of the San Diego Unified School Board meeting tonight. Trustees are moving ahead with a resolution reaffirming protections and recognizing October as an upcoming month of significance for the community. And KPBS education reporter MG Perez joins us now live outside the board meeting where a student rally has been underway. MG?
Maya, these students come from campuses across the San Diego Unified School District. They are gay, they are straight, they are transgender, but more importantly, they represent all gender identities and orientations. So they're a very diverse group. And they are here tonight for the school board meeting, which just began. At that school board meeting, there will be a very important resolution that will pass with unanimously is what is expected. To protect the LGBTQ students and their welfare. At the event this afternoon, many of them did criticize other school districts for banning books and the rainbow flag. They are here looking for support and protection for their rights, and they say that San Diego Unified is the leader. In June, it was also students who took the lead in raising the rainbow flag here at the administration building in recognition of Pride Month. Like today, these students came from gay-straight alliance groups at campuses across the district. They are represented on the school board by 2 student trustees, including 16-year-old Matthew Catoriano, a junior at San Diego High School.
These are students that we're talking about. We're talking about real humans that have lives and dreams and have a complex identity. And that's really the big thing that we really want to highlight.
Matthew is co-sponsor of the resolution being approved tonight. It reaffirms a student's gender identity, requiring use of their preferred name and pronouns. It also recognizes October as National Bullying Prevention Month, requiring schools to include lesson plans, media, and other resources to educate all students. And there is a call for additional history and social science curriculum, recognizing history and contributions of the LGBTQIA+ community.
Really, all of this is about an assault on education.
Fernando Lopez is executive director of San Diego Pride, an organization that has worked closely with the school district in developing programs and protections and standards of care for LGBTQ youth, especially now in the current political climate.
Really what we're seeing is a very intentional mobilization by right-wing extremists to be disruptive at school board meetings and city council meetings all over, yes, San Diego, but all over the country. And the extreme right has made it clear that they're not going to stop this organizing tactics.
The school board meeting has just begun, and students are expected to speak this evening. But again, the resolution is expected to pass unanimously. Reporting live in University Heights, I'm MG Perez, KPBS News.
Well, we have a pattern change on the way. We're going to start to see temperatures drop a few degrees on the mercury as we head into the late week, into the weekend. We're also going to increase that onshore flow, more clouds and even some rain in the forecast. We're going to track when that rain is going to start to push through and how cool temperatures get throughout the weekend.
The Biden administration is moving forward with plans to build new border walls at Friendship Park. Advocates told KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis that the new walls contradict the park's mission to be a sign of binational unity.
Save Friendship Park! People from all over the world come to San Diego and they think, I want to go to the zoo and I want to go to Balboa Park. Friendship Park should be on that list because it's such a remarkable, beautiful site.
That's John Fanistil. He loves Friendship Park. It's a truly unique binational park, half of it in Tijuana, the other half in San Diego, on top of a hill overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Fanistil says Friendship Park has the potential to be a real destination.
But instead of moving toward the realization of that potential, our federal government has effectively moved further and further away from that by restricting access on the U.S. side.
The latest blow has been the destruction of the Binational Garden, a series of flower beds that sit on both sides of the border wall. Fanistil says that construction crews destroyed the U.S. side of the garden when they replaced the border wall earlier this year.
So whereas the U.S. side of the Binational Garden had already been trashed, they're now about to trash the Mexico side of the Binational Garden in order to erect the new 30-foot wall.
Last week, people formed a blockade to stop construction of the border wall. Activists say that they were there for 6 hours. It's one of many protests against the wall construction. One of the most unique features of the park is a section where people from Mexico can spend time with people from the U.S. without having to cross the border. It's a popular gathering spot where deportees or undocumented immigrants can visit loved ones. That section of the park has been closed since the pandemic. Customs and Border Protection has promised, in writing, to reopen it once wall construction is complete. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
A North County Public Health Care District is requiring people to accept a Terms of Use agreement to access its website. A First Amendment lawyer says that might violate public access laws. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Wynn has the details.
As a public health care district, Palomar Health is supposed to have public records such as meeting minutes and agendas available online. But if you visit Palomar's website, this is what you see, a term of use agreement. You won't be able to access the website if you don't accept the terms.
I think it is deeply problematic, if not completely illegal.
David Loy is the legal director for the First Amendment Coalition. He says he's never seen public agencies impose these terms and conditions to access their website.
The public has a complete right to access agency records, agendas for agency meetings. These are public records. They belong to the people. The government serves the people.
The story was first reported by Voice of San Diego, a nonprofit news organization. California public healthcare districts are government agencies that are overseen by a board of directors and the public. Of the 75 public health districts in California, Palomar's website is the only one that requires visitors to agree to terms of use. Loy says by imposing the terms of use, Palomar could be violating the Brown Act, which requires meeting announcements to be posted and available to the public. That is deeply concerning to John Clark, who serves on the board of directors for Palomar Health.
I honestly can't tell you why the administration went ahead and did this. It certainly sends the wrong message to the public that Palomar, like many hospitals today, they have challenges, but restricting public access to the website, it's a move in the wrong direction.
He says the board was not informed of this change. He says he will try to put the item on the agenda at the next board meeting. For Loy, the most troubling part is the copyright clause, which forbids user from copying, reproducing, republishing, posting, retransmitting, or distributing information found on the site without permission.
For a public agency to tell people that they cannot use or copy or reproduce agency records, public records, that presents very serious First Amendment problems. It is tantamount to a prior restraint on the right of freedom of speech.
In a statement, Palomar Health says it is in the process of updating its outdated terms of use to, quote, reflect current legal requirements, and it hopes to have those ready by year-end. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Governor Gavin Newsom signed a series of gun control measures into law today. One of the new laws bars the concealed carrying of a gun in certain areas, including schools, parks, and at sporting events. It also sets a minimum age of 21 to obtain a concealed carry permit and strengthens background checks. Another new measure requires micro-stamping of all semi-automatic firearms sold in or transferred to California to make it easier for investigators to identify guns used in crimes. The law also includes an 11% state excise tax on the gun industry to fund school safety and violence reduction measures. President Joe Biden made history today, walking a picket line with striking auto workers in Detroit. Officials say he's the first sitting president to ever do this, and it comes less than a day before his biggest 2024 rival arrives for a speech in the battleground state. Laura Aguirre has more.
It's a picket line show of solidarity called the first ever of its kind by a sitting president.
Wall Street didn't build the country, the middle class built the country. Unions built the middle class. You deserve what you've earned, and you've earned a hell of a lot more than you're getting paid now. Thank you very much.
President Joe Biden also working to slow dropping poll numbers as a government shutdown deadline looms in Washington. The White House is clear, however, on the scope of the president's visit.
We are not involved in negotiations. That is something for them to decide what is going to work for the parties that are involved.
At stake, the United Auto Workers' powerful backing for the 2024 presidential election. Former President Donald Trump heads to Detroit Wednesday to address current and former union members. Workers say they are focused on getting their fair share of record auto company profits.
Coming in 2010, we, of course, didn't have any pension after bankruptcy and everything. So I would really like to see that cost of living is tremendously high right now.
The U.S. economy is estimated to lose billions of dollars before a labor agreement is reached, and those costs are expected to roll downhill to customers.
They're paying more for labor. They're paying more for, for building the car. The price of the car goes up.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
The Writers Guild of America could decide as early as today whether to accept a deal to end the months-long strike. The union has already stopped picketing, but actors with SAG-AFTRA were still marching with signs outside of Netflix today. Actors say they are happy for WGA members and optimistic that their own deal is not far behind.
SAG-AFTRA can't work 100% without writers and vice versa. When we go into the studios or go on set, somebody from both unions are making it happen.
There have been no known talks between the actors union and studios since the strike began, but the WGA deal could be used as a template since both unions were focused on many of the same issues.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, one-on-one with Vice President Kamala Harris. That's coming up at 7 right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
It was the worst air disaster in the United States at the time. 144 people were killed in the Pacific Southwest Airlines crash 45 years ago in North Park. And tonight, KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us what happened when he brought demands from those who've been working on a memorial for years to a member of the San Diego City Council.
Why isn't there one here? Why can't the politicians do that? Do I have to do it? They should do it.
None of us have a place to grieve. There's no cemetery. There's no headstone that I can say, you know, this is where I can pay my respects.
The voices of two people with close connections to the PSA crash. Mike Bagness, who as a 14-year-old sophomore at St. Augustine High School saw the plane coming down in his North Park neighborhood. And Myra Sulit-Pulowski, who lost her brother Michael, the last person to board PSA Flight 182 in Sacramento en route to San Diego. Both Bagness and Pulowski have been working for more than 10 years to get a proper memorial placed here near the corner of Dwight and Nile, where the PSA 727 smashed into the ground.
I can't believe that 45 years later, we still don't have a proper memorial to the people who perished.
Councilmember Stephen Whitburn represents District 3, which includes North Park.
We've heard how important it is to the family members of those who died that we have a memorial here to honor those who perished in this.
Both Pulowski and Bagness say the neighborhood has shown overwhelming support for placing a memorial here. There are two city-owned pieces of land within a block of the PSA crash site, this little piece at the eastern end of Dwight, and this triangle of land a block or so west of the site. Now, Pulowski and Bagness say the moment has come for the city to move the project forward to finally, 45 years later, bring the memorial into reality. Whitburn says he agrees.
I think it's time for the city of San Diego to step up and do this itself. And so I am now working with city staff to see how we can get a memorial in place as a city and have the city get this done.
Pulowski and Bagness say they've heard that before. So I asked Whitburn what concrete steps he could show he was taking to move the project forward.
I have a meeting scheduled for later this week with city staff to begin to put the pieces in place to get a memorial where it belongs to honor the victims of this tragedy.
That meeting has now happened, and a representative for Whitburn says the council member conveyed his strong stance on getting the memorial project done. But what about a timeline? How long before family members and others scarred by this tragedy see actual progress? Whitburn says, not long.
We are going to get a memorial to honor those who died in this tragedy. There's no reason why it should have taken 45 years to get this done, and I'm determined that it's not going to take 46.
If it finally happens, a proper memorial will give surviving family members and others deeply affected by this tragedy a place to go to pay their respects to the 144 people who died on one of the saddest days in the history of San Diego. John Carroll, KPBS News.
It's been 12 years since the repeal of the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. Now the Department of Defense is trying to update the service records of veterans who were discharged due to their sexual orientation. Oren Lieberman has the story.
During 22 years in the Navy, Karen Salt says she spent her career looking over her shoulder, afraid a fellow sailor might turn her in, or worse, and CIS would uncover the life she had to hide as a gay woman in the military.
They would try to root us out. They would try to catch one person, bring that person in, interrogate that person, have that person turn on a bunch of us. Next thing you know, there'd be a whole swoop of people that would be discharged.
In a forthcoming memoir called Hiding from My Life, Salt called these witch hunts. On the USS Frank Cable, Salt says she already faced discrimination as part of the first generation of female sailors allowed to serve on ships. Though she left the military on her own terms, she says concealing her sexuality created long-term scars from which she is still healing.
When I got out in 2006, I thought I would be free. And what happened for me was that I was still looking over my shoulder, because for 22 years, I had been looking over my shoulder. And so that did not go away. That was very conditioned into me.
12 years after the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the Defense Department is trying to take another step toward righting that wrong.
Even if the department didn't see it then, we see it now. We see you now.
For the first time, the Defense Department will proactively reach out to veterans discharged for homosexual conduct to correct and update their military records, as well as reviewing records of veterans who may be able to upgrade their discharge. Since 1980, more than 32,000 service members were discharged from the military under the homosexual conduct policy, according to DOD. When the Obama administration repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell in 2011, and it became legal to serve in the military as an open member of the LGBTQ community, some, but not all, eligible service members applied to change their military records to honorable discharges, removing a stigma and giving them access to veterans' benefits. Advocates say the latest effort is an important statement in support of LGBTQ+ rights, especially now.
I think in an era where right-wing extremists have plunged the LGBTQ+ community into a state of crisis, into a state of emergency, it matters to have an administration that's willing to go back and try to make wrongs right.
Oren Lieberman with that report. DOD officials say they will, quote, proceed cautiously in contacting veterans over the discharges to avoid any privacy concerns with personal information. California public schools will be required to have at least one gender-neutral bathroom on campus by 2026. Under the new law, K-12 schools will require the bathrooms to have signs indicating they are open to all genders. Gender-neutral bathrooms can be temporarily closed only if there is a documented student safety concern or for repairs. Governor Newsom says he hopes the law becomes a model for other states to help protect children. State Superintendent Tony Thurmond is entering the race for California governor. Thurmond announced he is seeking the Democratic nomination in a social media video today. In the video, he listed several priorities, including a raise in minimum wage, more housing, and higher pay for teachers. Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis is also campaigning for the office when Governor Newsom's second term ends.
Well, let's start you off with your weather headlines, what you need to know. Well, things are turning cooler by Thursday. I know we've been on a slight warming trend, running a few degrees above the historical average in areas like the desert. Still a few degrees below that historical average, though, along the coast and along the valleys. But things are going to be turning cooler across the region as we head into Thursday. Weekend light showers along the coast and strong mountain and desert winds are on the way as we head into the weekend. Now tonight we're dropping down to a low of 62. We're still dealing with patchy low clouds. It's going to decrease visibility, so that may cause some concerns, especially if you're going to be out late or early in the morning for tomorrow. Tonight's forecast, though, across the rest of the region, while Oceanside dropping down to a low of 55, Borrego Springs 67, and Mount Laguna 60. Now, what our setup is as we head into Wednesday, well, it's still warm across a lot of central and even SoCal, but hot across areas too. But you'll note that temperatures are changing even as we head into Thursday. But tomorrow, well, we'll still have that sunshine. It's still going to be relatively warm, still in the highs in the mid 70s in San Diego, Oceanside 78, Borrego Springs in the triple digits, and Mount Laguna 71. Now for Thursday, again, that comfortable air not quite reaching Southern California where San Diego is, and so that's why we're tracking some cooler air as we're going to increase that cloud cover as we do have some instability that's churning off of the west coast, and that's what's going to be bringing us our weather that we're going to be experiencing throughout the weekend. Let's take a look at your 5-day outlook along the coast. Well, morning sprinkles even by the beginning of the weekend, and temperatures are going to dip back down to the low 70s there. Inland, we're going to see our coolest day on Saturday as well with a high of 68. We're still dealing with a few sprinkles as we head a little bit further inland. Again, temperatures are going to start to drop as we head into Thursday and then drop even as low as 68 by Saturday. The mountains, well, look at that, a high of 49. It's going to be blustery on Saturday, so temperatures are going to drop quite a bit and stay cool throughout the weekend. And even areas in the deserts, well, wow, you're dropping down to highs in the 70s by Saturday. Not as warm by any means with a high of 74. Cool by Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
Soon, when you call for an Uber, you may get offered a taxi instead. It's part of a new partnership between the company and tax operators in Southern California. Taxi drivers will gain access to Uber trip referrals. Riders will be notified if they're matched with a taxi and have the opportunity then to decline. If a rider opts for the cab, they'll pay the Uber X rate. Yellow Cab's vice president says it's a win-win for all involved.
This will definitely benefit the taxi drivers because they will have more trips in their taxi cabs. The recent study shows in San Francisco, which they, I believe, launched approximately a year ago, the income for taxi drivers have increased by $1,700 a month. Those drivers that are participating in this program, and we're anticipating the same here in San Diego.
The multi-deal partnership includes taxi fleets in San Diego, LA, and Orange County. The program is set to begin this week. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. NPR's Morning Edition will talk with one of President Biden's top national security advisors on how a shutdown would affect the military. And then KPBS Midday Edition continues its conversation on men's mental health, and that airs at noon on KPBS FM. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.